Good evening and welcome. Are you ready? I'm sorry, I should have asked first. Now we're ready. Okay. Sorry. Good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. and I'll call to order our meeting for City Council, September 28, 2021. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mayor Ortega.
Here.
Councilmember Thompson.
Here.
Councilmember Estes.
Here.
Councilmember Applegate.
Here.
Councilmember Geek.
Here.
Councilmember Duncan.
Here.
All 6 members present.
Okay, we have a really busy agenda tonight. We've got a lot of public hearings and first readings tonight. So I'm just going to ask everyone be pretty succinct and efficient with our time. And we will keep moving forward. We have no presentations, board committee, commission appointments tonight. I'll start with City Council agenda requests and announcements. Ms. Duncan?
Good evening to everyone. I've had a pretty busy 2 weeks. Just this past, I'll go from the latter to I've had a really busy week with the Youth Council. We met this past Sunday. I set off the alarm and the chief didn't come, so I guess we were all right. So Creek Week is happening as we speak. It's from September the 25th through October the 3rd. So it's a 9-day watershed-wide, and you collect debris throughout your events. So if we want groups that are in the neighborhood, whether it be scouts or schools or churches or just individuals, to come out and help us clean up the Fountain Creek. 2 events I went to this week. Yesterday I was in Victor, met with the mayor, and the week before I was at the CML conference. Yesterday was the CML district meeting, and there was a lot of things that took place during these conferences and meeting. Most effectively, how to be most effective in my role as fountain government in solving city problems. So we discussed the Colorado lottery and where does the money go from there. We discussed about taxes, house bills, roads, climate. The governor from Colorado Springs was there. We went on and on. So the hospitality in Victor was excellent. Scott, they were looking for you, so I told them I was your replacement. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Geek?
I have one thing tonight. Last Wednesday, I was at the Board of Health meeting, and I would like to shout out to those people in the health department and the work that they're doing. Cities or counties as big as ours, most of the places have 250, 260 employees. We have 158, and Susan actually cried about how hard her people are working. And I just think that anybody that can send them a little message saying you're doing a fine job, it would really be nice to hear from the people in Fountain.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, sounds good. Mr. Applegate?
Nothing tonight.
Ms. Estes?
A couple events that I attended was the El Paso County Public Works Day, and that was absolutely fabulous. They let us play in their snowplow simulator, so I have a great new respect for our snowplow drivers. And then they let us play on the tractors and stuff, and just to hear everything that goes into maintaining a road and how they make all their signs and all their engineering process, it was really a fabulous day. So I really appreciated being able to attend that, especially with their engineer here, and so I appreciate that. The other one, with Councilmember Duncan, I attended the Colorado Municipal League Conference in Westminster, learned a lot, realized that we have very similar problems in our community that other communities are facing throughout the state. And it was just good to meet other people and how they're addressing these issues and maybe get some new ideas or just a different angle that we can address, but also knowing that we are leading the pack on a lot of these issues. And just to really appreciate our staff in knowing the things that they're leading us in. So I appreciate that, and that's everything.
Okay, Ms. Thompson?
There's a lot going on in our city. I'd like to congratulate each of the officers from the Fountain PD that received their awards at the award ceremony that you guys had a couple weeks ago. Unbelievable stories of what officers are doing within our city, and really, really appreciate all the things they do daily for us we don't even know about. But those stories are amazing. Old Town Steering Committee met for the first time in a while, and still talking about what's going on around here and looking forward. And you can kind of see some of the stuff already started across the street in terms of things we're doing to improve this intersection here. We had the ribbon cutting for the pump park, and boy, is that popular. If you haven't been to the pump park and seen that, it is filled every single day. I understand the words all over the internet with different biking groups, and it's extremely popular, and so it's great activity. Thank you, Sylvia, and everybody for the Parks Board and everybody getting that pulled off. That is really cool. Went by the other day and still full. So, yeah, that's really cool. The Community Night at the Park, thank you to the city staff and everybody who worked really hard on that. Had a good group of people out there, and all the nonprofits that came and distributed information about stuff going on in the community. That's always a great way to see them. We have two brand new Habitat houses across the street from Aragon Elementary, and I was honored to go to the ribbon cutting ceremony for that and see the family that's going to be moving into that home very shortly. If you are looking for a place to work and volunteer with affordable housing, Habitat is always looking for volunteers. They put 3 times as many nails, I understand, in the average house that's built. And even I can stand there and hold drywall, and somebody else can cut it nice and straight. So if you don't know how to do anything, they took the screw gun away a couple years ago from me, so that wasn't going too well. So anyways, but they have days, and it's just a great way to keep the houses moving along. They do depend a lot on volunteers within the community. Employee picnic, it was great to see all the employees out there, and thanks to everybody who planned that. I attended the food meeting that Colorado Health Foundation had by the Zoom. Didn't get to go to the in-person one, but they have some great results for that. I look forward to hearing more about it. And the last thing I got to attend for the City of Fountain got invited to the Medal of Valor dinner to hear about the great things Colorado Springs PD is doing and their program. And that was a wonderful evening, too, to get together and just hear that throughout this entire area, you know, what different police officers and departments are doing to really keep us safe and going. And so a lot of stuff going on. People are excited to be out. I think the big push to get things done before the weather turns cold. And but think about volunteering with Habitat, because the more volunteers they have, the more houses they can build. And of course, they're getting hit with the housing costs just like everybody else is, and that has slowed down some of their builds this year. So thank you.
Okay, I have nothing for tonight. We'll go ahead and move on to public to be heard. Citizens may address the council on items that are not on our agenda. We ask that we may not be able to provide an immediate answer, but we'll direct staff to follow up if we need to, and out of respect for council, others in attendance in our agenda night, we do ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. I only have one card tonight from Mr. Linder, an American Legion, it looks like.
Good evening, City Council. I'm Al Lender from Post 5 with the American Legion. American Legion Post 5. With me I have our Commander, Derek Hendricks, our Adjutant, Jason Fossey, and our Junior Vice Commander, Adrian Fossey. I am the past Senior Vice Commander with 33 years of service. Tonight we are here to recognize Dr. Deetra Duncan, City Council member, for her work with the Fountain Youth Council. Would you please come up or come down? We just want to recognize her for all the work that she's done. Several months ago, I had a request to her that I have an interview, basically, and she granted me, and we all sat together, and I talked with her, and I learned a lot. So tonight, this is for you, and we have a $400 check. I put it into the youth fountain. I didn't know how to write the check, so however you guys can do it with the finances. But we're giving a $400 check to you to do whatever you want for your youth council. It's on you. Take over.
So for the certificate of appreciation, it reads, Dr. Dietrich Duncan, in recognition and appreciation of your hard work in spearheading the creation of the Fountain Youth Council, which has provided an avenue for the team of this community to learn about and participate in local government, grow as leaders and neighbors, and make a lasting impact on the future of the city of Fountain and El Paso County. Presented by American Legion, PFC Floyd K. Lindstrom, Post 5, Colorado Springs, on this 28th day of September.
Let me get one there. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay,
Thank you, ma'am.
okay, thank you. That was a generous gift to the youth council, and, you know, we tried this a few years ago with the youth council, and it, it lasted for like 1 or 2 years, I don't even know, and it was really just so they could check this box off and have it on their resume for when they're applying to scholarships and stuff, and then it just petered out, but, you always need someone like, you know, Dietrich's gonna come in and really take charge with it, and, I had my I was very skeptical when she brought it forward. I'm like, well, we tried it, but we're going in year 2, and how many students do you have now?
We have
10
10.
students, and it's a pretty good number. I don't think they ever had that many. I don't remember during those years. I was with Ken Barella, I think, and a little bit with Miss Howells, but appreciate you working with that and keeping that going.
Yeah, we would have had more than that. Some of them say it went to their junk mail, so I have to keep reminding the kids to
Oh, okay.
check their spam. So we had a sponsor for our luncheon. We had a lot of good, great food, and they have a project that they'll be presenting at the next council.
Oh, great. Awesome. Okay. Good way to get community service in as well, so. Okay, I don't have any other cards. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to our consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be approved with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which case item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately at the discretion of the council. We have a lot of items on consent. We have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. Council, Ms. Thompson?
I would like to remove items E and H, please, for further discussion.
E and H. Okay. Anything else? I'll take a motion for the rest. Ms. Thompson?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A, B, C, D, F, G.
Okay, we have a motion, and Mr. Geek?
I'll second.
We have a motion and second for approval of those items. Please vote.
6 yes.
Okay, no old business. I'll move straight into new business and those items from the consent agenda. I'll start with item E, approval of a new contracts and programs administrator position in the city in support of the IGSA, Intergovernmental Service Agreement Program, and other city efforts. Ask a question.
Yes, I had asked to remove this item from the consent agenda for further discussion because one of the things that's always been important for the IGSA program is that if we brought on a new staff member, that position needed to be supported by the money from the IGSA program. I also know we need to be very careful about when we get to that tipping point and not overwhelming the staff before we get the contracts in there, so we may have a little overlap. But John, if you could just explain a little bit more about why that you feel that position is needed now and how it's gonna fund itself.
Sure. So where we're at currently with our IGSA program is we have 2 intergovernmental support agreements in place with Fort Carson right now. We have a pest control agreement, which brings in a revenue of about $37,000 to $40,000 a year into the city. And then we have a new IGSA, the general facility construction, which our projection, our estimate is that it would bring in about $135,000 a year in revenue. So combined about $170,000 to $175,000 a year in revenue with those two IGSAs we have in place. We additionally right now have begun negotiating with Fort Carson our third IGSA. They're very interested in Fountain providing transit services on the base. We are in discussions right now with the U.S. Air Force Academy to provide a wide range of different services at the Academy. We're also discussing providing services on Peterson Space Force Base and Schriever Space Force Base. So the IGSA program is expanding, pretty vigorously, but in order to support that, right now we've been managing that with just the staff that we have, mainly myself, with support of Troy, our city attorney, a professional services contract that provides us some contracting advice, and we've been able to get by. But I hesitate to try to expand the program and go to our military partners on these military bases and tell them that the city of Fountain can be a reliable partner that provides substantial services on the base, like pest control, construction services, refuse removal, grounds maintenance, street repair, the same things that we provide here in the city, knowing that we perhaps don't have the full resources in place in order to enable that. So that's what this position would intend to do, is set the conditions for the city of Fountain to be a reliable and real partner to the bases as the IGSA program expands. Speaking about the revenues, right now with the two we have with our projections at $175,000, that would more than cover the cost of the proposed position. And we don't intend to hire the position if council approves immediately. It's conditions based. So once it determined that we've gathered some momentum with the general facility construction IGSA on Fort Carson and the revenue is flowing in reliably and we're beginning to gain momentum there, is when we would look to bring this human resource in place to help us take the IGSA program to the next level. The IGSA program is wholly consistent with the city's vision statement and integrating and supporting the military community here. It is also, I think, going to make quite an appearance in the next strategy. Those who participated in the strategic work session that talked about looking for other opportunities to strengthen the financial situation in the city, IGSAs are absolutely a viable avenue that's bearing out for us of being a great partnership with our bases that improves our financial position. So, the door is open for us to really grow the program, but in order to do that, we need to have the resources in place within the staff to enable it, so that I can confidently go to our military partners and say that the city of Fountain is ready to do IGSAs with them.
You're comfortable that the two contracts that are in place now will underwrite that salary for that new person coming on board? We may have to cover a little bit of it at the beginning.
Correct. So
Eventually it will.
that's correct. And as well, in the last budget, we had approved for a professional services contract, for instance, of $60,000 a year, which we have used actually a fraction of. I've been very, very careful about the management of that contract, and so we've used very little amount from that. So when you even look at that as an offset to bringing on this position, it reduces the risk a little bit. But it is a projection, is what we anticipate with our partners on Fort Carson, that this is the revenue we would see. And that is how we would pay for this position.
Okay, any other questions? Ms. Duncan?
One question that I have is the position from full-time to part-time. Have you considered starting off at part-time?
That is a possibility. We could certainly, look at part-time transitioning to full-time, as we gain momentum. One of the challenges with that is that we are looking for an experienced person. We graded this and looked at across the comparative fields for the type of person we need, And what we used was looking at like a senior non-commissioned officer from the military or a mid-grade officer that has about 15 years worth of experience, really understands federal contracts and working with the military bases, or a more senior GS level federal employee at about the GS 11 or GS 12 level. In order to get somebody, those are folks that generally aren't looking for part-time work. So part of the challenge that we have is finding the right type of person we need to really move the program forward. And at the same time, seeing how we can create a position that reduces a little bit of the risk to the city.
Thank you. I just, in my research and looking up this position, the most qualified person I saw had 8 years experience. So I thought, wow, 15 years.
And there are some out there, and we had an experience a couple years ago with a great veterans fellow that we brought here who was a senior non-commissioned officer in the Air Force, and we actually, he's one that we have on a professional services contract. He's been absolutely invaluable to us. But unfortunately, the program moved slower in development, and he moved on and found another job, but he's the type of candidate that we're looking for, that type, and we believe that there are others out there that we could find.
So one more question, you have in the job description that they will be writing grants, is that for the entire?
Yes, council member. So the reason, initially, we had called this position an IGSA analyst is what we wanted to call it, really focused on the IGSA program and implementing that. What we looked at was that and realized was that this position is going to be able to provide a much broader support to the city in general from a contracts management, procurement, and grant writing perspective. So right now, when a department has a contract they need to do, the department's got to develop the contract themselves. They have to write the contract. They have to write the request for proposal. They've got to go out and do the solicitation. They've got to do the negotiating. They've got to prepare the contract with Troy's help. They're doing all that themselves, and they're not experts in contracting. This position would be a contracting expert who could help facilitate that on behalf of the departments, which would create a real efficiency, and to include grant writing. So while IGSA implementation and management would be their core function, I think that there would be space in their portfolio to help the city and the different enterprises of the city with contract procurement and grant management.
Okay, makes sense to me.
I'm comfortable that he answered all the questions, so with that, I'd like to make a motion
Okay, we have a motion
to approve.
for approval. Yep, Ms. Duncan.
I second.
We have a motion and second for approval for item E. Please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
All right, and then item H, 7H is Resolution 21-048, a resolution approving the Aspen Ranch Park and Open Space Dedication Credit Agreement between the City of Fountain, Colorado, a municipal corporation and home rule city of the state of Colorado, and COLA LLC as developer and Viva Land Ventures LP as landowner. Has Ms. Martinez listed? What's your question, Ms.?
Yeah, my question is, as always comes when we have these open space dedication and they're going to do a park instead, we all love parks, but as we found out in the past, we need to make sure that the development is being phased in while the development is being done. And I know we may not be in that process, at that location in the process yet, but I just want to make sure that it's coming up, that certain phases of the park are going to be coming in as the development is happening, so similar to what we did with Ventana. In Ventana, when they did phase 1, they had to have, I think, the clubhouse done. Phase 2, the pool had to be in, and then the playground and different things, so that, I'm sorry? Have it completed, so that the people who are being some of your original owners there get the enjoyment and of the enhancements that are being put in and not having to wait 10 or 15 years, and then their kids are off to college and didn't get to use any of it that they moved in with hope. So I just want to make sure that that is in there, Sylvia, Christie, whoever, as part of the discussion, that it's going to, the amenities are going to be being phased in for that park as the development is happening, so.
Sure. Within the agreement, it is stipulated that the park will be phased. It's anticipated that the development will occur within 2 phases, so the improvements within the second phase cannot commence until the improvements have been completed within the first phase.
Perfect, thank you. That was my whole question. I just want to make sure we're getting it done in the right order, so thank you. And with that question, unless anybody has them, I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Move to approve?
Ms. Estes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval. Please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
All right, we'll move on to item 9, new business. Or 9B, actually. I'm opening a public hearing and resolution number 21-049. Resolution setting forth findings of fact and conclusions based thereon regarding the eligibility for annexation of the city of Fountain of the territory known as Mark Shuffle Road. Annexation located north of the intersection of Mark Shuffle Road and Peaceful Valley Road, and hereinafter more specifically described in Exhibit A. Ms. Martinez.
If the council desires, you can also open the public hearing on item 9C, as they are related to.
Okay,
9B.
can I do both? Is that okay? Okay, so I'll open the public hearing as well for item 9C, first reading of ordinance number 1767, an ordinance annexing to the city of Fountain. That area to be known as Mark Shuffle Road annexation, located north of the intersection of Mark Shuffle Road and Furlong Circle and south of the intersection of Mark Shuffle Road and Peaceful Valley Road, hereinafter more specifically described in Exhibit A. After we have public comment, council discussion, I will close both hearings and we'll take a motion on each item separately.
Thank you. Good evening. Christy Martinez with the Planning Department. The first item concerning the annexation of Mark Shuffle Road is the findings of facts. This is a statutory requirement to stipulate that the city has met all of the obligations outlined in the Colorado Revised Statutes. The area being considered does consist of entirely public right-of-way that's currently owned and within the jurisdiction of El Paso County. Last year, the city worked with El Paso County to annex Mark Shuffle Road from the intersection of Link and CNS Mark Shuffle, right where that transitions, to Furlong Circle, as part of our continued agreement with the county to bring in roadways that are adjacent to the city. This is our next phase, would be to annex Mark Shuffle Road from Furlong Circle north to Peaceful Valley. This entire strip here. A lot of the land on the west side has already been annexed into the city, in addition to the Almagre development on the east side. In reviewing the annexation request, it's been determined by staff findings that it does comply with all of the state requirements. It is contiguous with existing city limits at 53.8%, while the state statutes do require a minimum of 1/16%, which is a 16.6% contiguity, so we far exceed that requirement. All of the public notices and publications were provided. City staff is required to notify all taxing entities that are adjacent to or impacted by any annexation, and is required to publish the annexation in a local newspaper for 4 consecutive dates, which did occur on August 18th, August 25th, September 1st, and September 8th. Therefore, staff would recommend tonight approval of Resolution 21049. Moving on to the consideration of the annexation request itself, again, the same area. It is approximately 12.3 acres in size. Again, it's all the public right-of-way. As you recall, El Paso County had in recent years improved Mark Shuffle Road by widening, restriping, and making various improvements for that future expressway corridor. The total perimeter of the annexation is 12,513 lineal feet. Again, 53.8% is already contiguous to the existing city limits. By state statute, any annexation that's greater than 10 acres is required to submit an annexation impact report to the Board of County Commissioners. At the El Paso County Board of County Commissioners meeting on July 27th of 2021, they did waive that requirement due to the fact that it is primarily just public right-of-way. So there aren't going to be any city services or extenuating circumstances that would require an annexation impact report to evaluate any impacts to taxing entities, school districts, or any other special districts within the area. This is a zoomed out annexation. So the first annexation that I had mentioned was the Mark Shuffle Road from Link to Furlong, which occurred and was completed last year. And then this is that next segment that's annexed, and just a zoomed in version to show the 12 acres. The area does fall within the urban growth boundary of the Fountain Comprehensive Development Plan and is consistent with Principle 1 to ensure the logical extension of city boundaries and the Growth Management Policy 1.2 to ensure strategic annexations in order to protect the city's growth options. It's also consistent with Policy Number 1 and Number 4 of the 2007 City Annexation Plan to encourage voluntary annexations with 100% property owner authorization, signing the petition, and finding that annexations do benefit the city and provide a logical extension. Staff finds that the area proposed for annexation is located within the urban service or urban growth area, is also located within the adopted 2021 3-mile plan, which is incorporated into our annexation plan and comprehensive development plan and updated annually. The annexation consists entirely of right-of-way, so there's no need for extending public services, public utilities, water infrastructure, or anything to the right-of-way. The request is consistent with applicable state statutes, and all the public notice requirements have been met. It is staff's recommendation tonight that Ordinance 1767 be approved on first reading, considering the annexation known as Mark Shuffle Road annexation. Are there any questions for staff?
All right, questions, please.
And Jennifer Irvine with the El Paso County Department of Transportation County Engineer is also here if there's specific
Okay.
questions for.
Mr. Geek?
I have a question on the, if we need to put signal lights at Peaceful Valley or at Mesa Ridge Parkway, will we have to be responsible for those?
For the intersection at Mesa Ridge Parkway, El Paso County has already, I hope I don't overstep, awarded the contract to an entity to install those signals using the PPRTA fund, so that will continue. I'm not sure about Peaceful Valley.
Good evening, council. I'm used to afternoon at the board. Jennifer Irvin, county engineer. I'm here on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners. And first, I just want to say how amazing your city staff is, and we appreciate all the work that we do with them. As Christy mentioned, the county is working on installing a signal in coordination with your city engineer, Brandy Williams, and we will be ensuring that that meets all requirements of both El Paso County and the city of Fountain. And so we will be continuing on with that. I do expect that any signal required in the future at Peaceful Valley will be likely triggered by a development. And so we will be working with the city of Fountain to ensure that that occurs when development does come in and trigger that signal.
How much development does it take? Because I can tell you right now, leaving Peaceful Valley and trying to get on that road is not easy. And I'm waiting for the big one. There's gonna be somebody get hurt. And you're on a corner there, or a curve, so that, to me, needs to be taken care of before we wait for all this other stuff. You have houses on both sides of Mark Shuffle. And with the church and the school that's right there on the corner, it's an accident looking for a place to happen.
We can certainly go ahead and take a look at, so when we, the county, look at signals, we look at signal warrants, and those are based upon the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and those are based upon 9 different considerations, and that's what we follow. Certainly would be happy to work with the City of Fountain to look at those warrants and evaluate whether those warrants are met and whether a signal is required at this time.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, any other questions before I go to public? Okay, no other right now from council. It's a public hearing on both items, which is really the same item. If you have any questions, please come forward. Please state your name for the record.
Gordon Rick, question for the county. Where Mesa Ridge Parkway crosses Mark Shuffle, there was at one time a plan to extend Mesa Ridge Parkway out east, swing it around, and create a new road going out to PPIR. Is that still the case? And if so, is Fountain going to incur any costs when you start developing that road to go south to improve the intersection? Thank you.
Gordy, if you're okay, I'll get that one for Jennifer. Basically, there's two plans in place. One, Mesa Ridge Parkway right now is planned to be another major thoroughfare that will extend out to Squirrel Creek and then eventually into Cane Ranch itself. But specifically, the question is I think related to the Powers extension. So the Powers extension, we are working with any developer that's in the city of Fountain. We've discussed those others out east that will probably end up in Colorado Springs. But we are requiring the developers to set aside that right-of-way to allow that to continue through there, but we have not made any type of a commitment towards any funding of that Powers extension.
Okay, but when they hook it in, are we going to have to pay for any road improvements on Mark Sheffel to improve the crossing there?
No,
Thank you.
you bet.
All right, other questions? Okay, I am not seeing any. Ms. Duncan?
I motion to approve.
Oh, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Because we're still in open public hearing. Okay, council, anybody else have any further questions or comments?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is a really good idea because of the fact that the church and all the golf course and everybody around it is like on an island right now, and they will actually be connected to the city then, and that makes sense.
No, that's a good point. Okay. All right. Seeing no questions, I'll close the public hearing on both items. Okay. If no further comment from council, we'll look at item B, resolution 2-049.
Do we have to do them one at a time?
Yeah, we have to do them one at a time. Ms. Estes?
I move to approve Resolution 21-049.
Okay, and Mr. Applegate, sorry.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval of the resolution. Please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
All right, and then item C, first reading of ordinance number 1767. Mr. Applegate.
Yeah, I recommend that we approve ordinance 1767 on first reading.
And Ms. Thompson.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval of the ordinance 1767. Please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
All right, sounds good. Okay, we will move on to item 9D, first reading of ordinance number 1768, an ordinance of the City of Fountain, Colorado, approving the refinancing of its utility revenue bonds, Series 2013, for the purpose of decreasing debt service expenses over the remaining term of the bond debt and for paying the costs of refinancing and providing details and documents in connection with the bonds. It says Mr. Lewis, but I have Mr. Blankenship. All right.
Mr. Lewis is not here this evening, so I'm going to take the lead on this item.
Wow,
Mayor and
okay.
council, good evening. This is a proposal to refinance basically a bond that was issued in 2013. The initial debt issuance was $12.64 million. We currently have a balance on there of $9.9 million. We have an opportunity to refinance this bond and significantly reduce our interest rate. Based on current market rates, our net present value savings is estimated to be a total of $1.3 million over the life of the bond, which is approximately $72,000 a year. Currently, we're paying a little over $680,000 a year on our principal and interest costs, and this would kick it down to just under $610,000 a year. So and one of the most important, I think, aspects about this, in addition to saving money, first question I asked John is, does this change the payoff date, which is September 1st of 2043? And it does not change the payoff date. So this does not push anything out, but it simply will save us, as estimated today, our ratepayers approximately $1.3 million over the remaining life of the bond. So recommendation is that, staff recommendations that it recommends that this ordinance be approved. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, questions for Mr. Blankenship? We like good news. Okay, I see no questions. Council? Mr. Geek?
I make a motion to approve ordinance 1768 on the first reading.
Okay, and Ms. Duncan?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval. Please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
All right, item 9E is resolution number 21-050, a resolution amending the appropriation of fiscal year FY 2021 budgeted funds. Hi.
Good
Shauna,
evening.
go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Shauna Dale, Deputy Finance Director, Finance Department. I'm filling in for John Lewis this evening. Excuse me. During third quarter so far, we have identified some necessary expenditures and revenues that are coming in and need to be spent for the city, and so we are requesting an addition and amendment to the 2021 appropriated budget that has already been approved. And I will run through just a real quick spreadsheet. So going over the general and water funds, this is actually for general water and electric, which I will get to in just a second. This is actually a net wash of 0, so there is no impact to the net position or the fund balance for any of the 3 big funds. All of this is technically is just a reclassification of already approved capital projects into other capital projects that have become a higher priority. So for the general fund, you'll see that the net change is 0 for both general fund and water, and also for the electric fund. For the ambulance fund, we have identified $620,000 in revenue that's coming in from Medicaid, which I believe Chief Heberer discussed with you this summer for public safety personnel. So the expenditure that we have in the ambulance fund is approximately $300,000 for 3 new firefighters and public safety personnel out of the ambulance fund, but it is still a net increase to the ambulance fund of approximately $320,000. The last fund that is affected within this supplement is the transportation fund, and this is for the new 2021 bus lease that we identified earlier this year. And this is just for the actual annual payment to be included, since we did this lease after the budget was already approved. So at this point, staff recommends approval of the 2021 amendment for the supplemental for the budget, and I'll take any questions that you have.
Okay, so a wash on the money, but really just reclassifying
Yes.
projects.
Yes, and it's actually reclassifying just capital projects that were identified earlier this year, and now we have new capital projects that are taking higher priority. So it's just capital to capital.
Okay. Okay, questions?
Thank you for your time.
Okay, council? Oh, Ms. Estes.
I move to approve resolution number 21-050.
Okay, and Mr. Geek?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval. Please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
All right, item 9F, resolution 21-051, a resolution authorizing a transit dispatch services department for the transportation division of the city of Fountain. Mr. Evans.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This resolution, basically the background on this is the city came to an agreement with the senior center back when we started our transit system back in 2012, that they would oversee our dispatch services, but we would fund those services. So through the years, it's worked out pretty well. We've had logistical problems, we've had operational problems that we've kind of dealt with through the years. This year, and actually this concept of us bringing our dispatch center in-house isn't anything new. I think it was about 4 years ago, we had discussions with the senior center that maybe this would work out better if we brought the dispatch center into the city itself and actually allowed our employees to have one chain of command, one set of policies, rather than having to kind of answer to 2. They kind of had 2 bosses all of these years, what makes it very difficult. So this is something we discussed with them, but at the time, we didn't actually have the facilities where we could house that dispatch services. But now, since we have the fleet building, we've moved the rest of the transportation departments down there. We have the size, we have the building to put them into. So we started the conversation again with the senior center. And it's a kind of an unusual resolution because we already pay for the services. So we're not requesting any additional funding to pay for these, as we already pay for them through a service contract with the senior center. So we basically put the question out to them: would this work better if we just took dispatch in-house? And they replied to that and then came back and said, yeah, we believe it would be. So it's kind of an agreement on both sides that we've done the best we could through the years, but as we grow, our transit grows, the senior center had other issues to focus on, it would just be better for us to bring it inside. So as you can see through the assessment that you got, we kind of went through the basic staffing, what it would take. One of the big issues that we've worked with, and we've kind of asked for the senior center to come up with a solution for the past year, is that we need dispatchers available the entire time that our buses are out on their routes. And right now, for about 4 hours a day, as well as our Saturday routes and our holiday routes, we don't have dispatch services. And basically, that's the lifeline for your buses. That when they have an issue, and we do have examples when they have needed police response, they call dispatch, say, this is where I'm at, I need PD response, because our drivers aren't trained and we don't want them to get involved in any issues that they have on the buses. If we don't have dispatch that's able to answer that immediately, they lose that lifeline. And if you've got riders on your bus and you're driving, it's impossible to drag a cell phone out, call 911. We know the difficulties with that, and try to get that communication. So that was something they couldn't solve, which was a big, big priority for us, was to get that coverage. So as we move forward, this is something that we may have to change some of these hours. We have to make some little adjustments. But the nice thing with this regards to the money side of things, our current contract itself will pay for the salaries that you have in your assessment. If we have to make adjustments, we will also retain the fares, which right now we also pay to the senior center. So when you combine the two, that comes out to about $145,000 to $150,000 a year of our contract. And right now, the salaries for the dispatchers down there are right between $80,000 and $90,000. So we've got money we can work with if we have to add a dispatcher to be able to cover all of those hours for our drivers. So that's kind of a summary. And you've got the staff assessment in front of you that Rosa and Heather did a great job putting together. Is there any other questions I can answer for you?
Makes sense since we're paying for it and everything else is pretty much
Correct.
coming out of what we're doing anyway. And with senior center, they've got a lot of issues and pandemic didn't help.
Correct.
So, yes, Ms. Duncan.
I just would like to thank Todd for his forward thinking on this with the public safety of our community.
You bet. Thank you.
Ms. Thompson?
You bet.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this forward. You know, we do need those hours covered. We need to be able to just pick up and call, like you said. I would like to kind of throw something in there. Last year, we were able to offer free Saturday bus service during the holidays, after Thanksgiving through Christmas. Is that something we're considering again this year?
We sure are. Rosa's got it on her schedule, and she's all over it. We just talked about it today.
Because I think that is a great service to offer to our citizens to be able to get to the businesses around town to do their shopping.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes. And this is something, it was mentioned earlier about the possible IGZA with Fort Carson. This is something that with this type of a system, we can roll those responsibilities directly into it without negatively impacting it. Right. So, yeah, there's a lot of possibilities that we can do. Where right now the senior center couldn't come close to covering their hours as well.
Right.
Which we will be able to.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Okay, I have lights. Is this for questions or?
No question.
No questions? Okay. Okay, I will take a motion then. Ms. Thompson?
Yeah, I move to approve Resolution 21051, authorizing a transit dispatch service.
Okay, and Ms. Duncan?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you. All right, item 9G, declaration of a vacancy for the at-large position and determine matters relative thereto. Ms. Huffman?
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. As you know, Mayor Pro Tem Lauer announced his decision to resign from his seat. So pursuant to state statutes, we do have to declare a vacancy for that position. And it was my understanding from City Council that we were not going to put it to a petition. that we would leave that seat vacant through the November election. And so this is just the formality to declare that vacancy.
Okay, and just for clarification for folks, they get 21 days to get a petition filled, right? Is that what,
15 days.
15 days, okay, so that would put us 2 weeks. And then it would be really, you get someone for a meeting, maybe? Yeah, maybe 2 meetings, yeah. So, I think in a normal year, if this was, in a July, then it would make more sense to go through the process. And then I think there's other things that kick in if a second person resigns at the same time, and then it goes into special elections, so there's a lot of rigmarole with that. So if you do end up getting on council, don't quit. Okay. All right, so we just need to declare this through a motion? Okay, Mr. Applegate.
Yeah, I move to declare the at-large seat vacancy and allow the seat to be filled by regular election to be held on November the 2nd, 2021.
Awesome. And Ms. Duncan?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval. Please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
All right, item 9H. Opening a public hearing to consider the request of an application for a special events liquor permit for the city of Fountain. Who is doing this? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Huffman.
Just a real quick overview. There is a newly established committee, and they've named themselves Fountain Up. This committee is determined to begin some more downtown events, as we had years ago with our downtown events committee. They've gotten together and realized that through social media that there's a lot of people that want to see those events again. And they're here before you requesting a special event liquor permit for their upcoming event.
Okay, and is it? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Rosa.
Hi, my name is Rosa McCormick. I am an employee and also a resident of Fountain. On our committee, we have some residents and also some employees. Thank you for considering this application. The city has been gracious in helping us apply for this license. We have brought together a group of people that would like to continue fun community events like we had in the past with the Downtown Events Committee. We are wanting to host this event on Saturday, October 30th, the day after Trunk or Treat event. We have partnered with our local brewery to exclusively serve their beer. We have a team of tip certified to conduct sales and serving. We are anticipating having a costume contest, pumpkin carving contest. The event will be scheduled from 5 to 10 p.m. and it's free to the public, of course. If we get approved tonight, we will coordinate with the Police, Fire, Streets, and Parks Department for their help with this event. We will anticipate speaking to the businesses along Main Street, and we are hoping that we can continue these types of events to have a sense of place in our community. The community misses these events, as do we. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, yeah, these were some fun events when we used to have them, and when the now defunct Downtown Events Committee kind of went away, it was kind of hard. That's why that's really what spurred the trunk or treat and things like that. So I think this would be very well received and a good spot to start from.
And I hope you got a copy of the flyer
Yep.
that we passed out.
Yep, we do have that, and it is a public hearing. First, council, any questions on this? Okay, no questions there. It is a public hearing. Any public have any questions or concerns on this? Okay, and just for those who may be newer, when we did have these, we did always have beer available, and we made sure to have the right people in place to sell the beer. They had the certifications and those types of things. So it wasn't just someone like me just randomly passing out beer, but we do have a process by the law that we follow to make sure it's legal and everyone is doing what they need to do. They're not allowed to leave the area, those types of things, and so it's very, very well put together. Okay, I see no questions from anybody. I am going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Okay, with that, council, Ms. Estes?
I move to approve the special event permit and liquor license application for the city of Fountain on behalf of Fountain Up. Great group name, guys.
All right, and Ms. Duncan? Okay, we have a motion and second for approval. Please vote.
6 yes, motion
All
carried.
right, well, best of luck. I know that's gonna be a lot of work on your part. Don't get discouraged. You're gonna get a lot of people, so, thank you. And just for everybody knows, we're still doing the trunk or treat the night before, for the kiddos as well. Is this correct? Yes? Okay. Busy weekend. All right. We are gonna take a 5-minute break to let the, utilities get ready and give us a moment to take a deep breath, and we'll come back to our water master plan. were supposed to be working on that one, so. Okay, good evening, everybody, or welcome back, everybody, not good evening, whatever. We are gonna move on to item number 9I, presentation number 2 of 3 of the Water Master Plan. Before I let Mr. Blankenship take it, I just want to thank all the candidates and pre-council member who is already a council member but not yet. Thank you for coming tonight. This is a vitally important plan that we're working on, and I'm going to say this every single time, but the water situation in the Southwest is pretty dire, and we're going to be right in the middle of all that. And so it's going to be hugely important that you guys understand what's happening with this as we move forward with this plan. Because really, as we adopt it, you're the ones who need to take it and carry it forward, and ensure that, you know, the utilities and we are as responsible as we can be with the water and everything that's going on across the Southwest and Colorado and of course Fountain in particular. And being as we're a small community, it does make it harder to have those bigger decisions that we would really love to be able to have control of, because we've got Carr Springs and all these other entities that are vying for the same water as we are. So while we work regionally and things like that to get as much water and movement of that water available, we want to make sure that you are very well versed in this as well. I do want to thank the water department for all the hard work going into this plan and moving us forward. Not a plan we haven't had in 17 years almost, pretty close, and so we really need to buckle down with this. There was another thought I had and I completely lost it, but I will. Oh no, you know, we'll learn a lot tonight about some of the future or the past decisions that have been made that have really put us in a really great position today, and for our future as well. So thank you to all those previous leaders and council members and mayors that kind of pushed things forward, and much to the behest of a lot of, you know, people who were angry that didn't really understand what this fight was about, but you know, there's a lot of stuff going on. With that, Mr. Blankenship, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to do the introduction, but you seem to have covered that for me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. Thank you for those words, but I want to do an introduction, then I'm going to hand the baton over here to Mike Fink, our Water Resources Manager, to kind of go through the nuts and bolts. Just want to say that this is a draft plan. What we have presented to you, what we've provided to you, and what we've presented to you, and we fully anticipate that we will be making changes to it and editing it and correcting things that may have been misstated as we move towards the final version of it. But our goal at this point is really just to educate the council, you all, so that each of you have a good understanding of primarily three things. We want you to have a good understanding of the various components of our water system. I kind of describe it as a chain, like the supply chain. We have, starting at water rights, our water supply, all the way to our water taps, we have several links of that chain, and we want you to understand each of those links. We want you to understand the current status of each of those components of the water system. And then we also want you to understand the purpose of the master plan and what the master plan is. From my perspective, this is a directional document. It's not a decisional document. It's adoption of the plan will not provide new water taps, but implementation of the plan will ultimately, not immediately, but ultimately will result in creation of additional capacity to serve those new water taps. The plan gives us the knowledge that we need to make appropriate, council and staff, appropriate, strategic, data-driven, and financially sound decisions on how to operate, maintain, and expand the city's water system. The master plan contains comprehensive evaluations of each element of the water system. It also contains detailed evaluation of the future needs of our current customers and alternatively, the future needs of growth to build out the entire system within our current boundaries. The plan includes identification of alternatives to address those needs, and the plan also includes recommendations of possible new policies and revisions to existing policies. I'd like to make three points, or share 3 points that I think are very critical with the council from my perspective. As we stand today, we have more than adequate supply to meet the demands of our existing customers. I think we want to make that very clear. When Mike makes his presentation in a few minutes, he's going to show you a matrix that has 3 different scenarios on each axis of the matrix, and one of that is what we have as far as precipitation, and then what happens with the Colorado River Basin. So even in a dry year, and if we were to have severe reductions in Colorado River Basin water, we would still have adequate supply to meet the needs of our current customers. So I think that that's a real key point. Second critical point that I want to make is related to financing. You know, we have, so to speak, mortgaged the farm, particularly with SDS. However, without SDS, we would already be upside down. We would have run out of capacity a few years ago. So it was, I mean, doing SDS was really, really important. And even though it did cost us a lot of money to do that, we would be in far, far worse shape without it. Currently, the water fund has a total amount of debt of just under $50 million. Our annual payments of principal and interest on that are a little over $3.5 million. And the tough thing with that is the first bond that we pay off is not until 12/1 of 2038. So we have that level of debt for at least 17 more years, and that's a significant point, because that really drives our ability to finance in the future, and it also drives really where we're at rate-wise too. Third critical point is ultimately we want to balance each element of the chain so that we can provide for build out of the entire system. Right now, our treated water capacity is our constraint. It's the weak link in the chain, and so that is our top priority, is to fortify our treated water capacity. The council's role in this. We want you to be able to obtain the appropriate level of knowledge about the city's water system so that you can make educated policy decisions and provide policy level directions. What's that mean tonight? Tonight, that means, we're going to make the presentation to you, and we encourage you to ask questions, share your thoughts, share your ideas, and share your concerns. We plan to come back on October 26th for consideration of adoption of the Water Master Plan. However, that said, once again, we really want to make sure that you have the knowledge and you feel educated enough to be able to make a good decision on the master plan. So I would encourage you that if you don't feel that you have the information or level of understanding that you need to make that decision at that time, that we move that back and make sure that you do have what you need. But if you feel comfortable, we will be ready, and we will come back on October 26th with a recommendation for you to consider the adoption of the Water Master Plan. Beyond adoption and going into the future, and as the mayor kind of alluded to, I mean, this council, if you take action on the 26th, this council will adopt the plan. However, it will be the next council that will have to consider and take action on policies. That's new policies or ordinances, revisions to existing policies, and as recommended by the master plan. or other actions that are needed to implement the direction of the that's established by the master plan. So it's not only this council's actions, but it's going to take, and I think I certainly want to reinforce the mayor's comments about thanking the candidates for being here and being part of this. We provided them with the information too, because whoever is going to be sitting in these seats in a couple months is going to be tasked with the implementation of this plan. So it's really important for that for those individuals to be educated also. So those are my introductory remarks. Are there any questions for me at this time? And if there are not, I'll go ahead and hand things over to Mr. Fink.
I just have one.
Yes, sir.
If this doesn't have to be done right now, is that what you're saying? We could wait a month?
I'm saying that, yes, I'm saying that you I believe and I feel that you as a council member needs to be educated to the point where you feel like you can make a good decision on this master plan, because this is going to establish the direction that we move forward on in meeting the water needs of our community through build out of our community.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just have one question. You mentioned about our supply being adequate even through a dry year and decrease in participation. Say it for me. My question is, so if we were to have a fire, has that been addressed?
Yes. Yeah, that is, I mean, that's really an operational and a pressure issue. It's not a water capacity issue. So yes, we do have our system. In fact, the improvements that are being made to our system right now will actually improve the fire protection in the core part of the community. And that's underway. That's part of the extension of the 36-inch transmission main on the south side of town. Okay. So yes, that is that we have adequate supply for that.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. All right.
Thank you, Dan. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, senior staff, members of the public. My name is Michael Fink. I am your water resources manager, and for the last 2 years, I have been the project manager for the Water Master Plan. Tonight, my goals to you are that at the end of this, you will have a better understanding of the foundational basis of the Water Master Plan. You will understand demand growth, which is the very foundational function, and the role of conservation in this planning process. You will understand the role of the water supply to satisfy the demand as it increases. You will understand the planning. Yes?
If you're not uncomfortable with removing that, it would be easier to understand.
Okay. Okay. You'll understand the planning for delivering treated water to the customers is different than the water demand. You will understand how land planning informs and works with the water resources planning. You will understand how financing is necessary to address these demand and supply growth projections, and I will introduce some policy topics that will require council decisions in the future. At the August 24th meeting, Katie Helm, sitting right over there, introduced the water planning process. She noted that it is a comprehensive assessment of supply, treatment, storage, demand, distribution, and financing. It identifies and prioritizes critical needs, determines how we proactively address these needs. The Water Master Plan is a projection of the growth of the entire system, driven by the increase in water demand. It is not tied to a calendar schedule. The Water Master Plan is directional, not decisional. This is the third presentation. Right now, as Dan said, this is the second of 3. The third one is scheduled for October 26th. Following adoption, we will consider and continue to update the council, and document development will continue as we assess progress. Execution of initiatives is driven by water demand, not a timeline. And that's where we're going to start, right at the very bottom. The foundational element of the water master plan is water demand. And get used to seeing this graphic because it's on every page. Water demand right there. Fountain's water service area is actually less than the entire city of Fountain. The water system serves only that part of Fountain south of Whitefield, Security, and Stratmore Hills water districts. Our water service area is shown in this figure in pink. And our water distribution system is shown in, I guess, brown here. On my computer it looked blue, but that's the water network that we serve. There's a lot of our water service area that is not developed, and that's what drives the demand that we're talking about. Our demand is defined in several different ways. The annual water demand is about 3.167 acre feet. An acre is a football, acre foot is an acre foot, acre is a football field by a foot depth, or it's about 1 billion gallons. The annual water demand is used to plan for water rights, raw water supply, and raw water storage. The current average daily demand is 2.8 million gallons every day. But the maximum daily demand is almost twice that. In fact, we call it a peaking factor of 1.9. The maximum daily demand last year was 5.32 million gallons. There's a peak on top of that for the peak hour, and that happened the same day in the middle of July last year, and it was peaked out at 350,000 gallons per hour. For completely building out the fountain service area, the projected annual demand is 11,527 acre feet, or 3.75 billion gallons. Stated again, it's 4 times what we deliver right now. The peak day at that point is almost 20 million gallons. Again, roughly 4 times what we peak right now. I'm going to go back to what we had before for just a moment. While our planning horizon is 2050, which coincides with the Colorado Water Plan update and the Arkansas Basin Implementation Plan update, we would need to average almost 900 single-family residence starts and build over 10 acres of commercial development every year between now and then to fully build it out. So the term is demand-driven. It's not according to a calendar. That is just a date that we've picked. We're actually projecting well beyond this 30-year horizon. The demand projection is based on developments planned within the service area, plus the non-built infill areas. Again, all this big empty pink area that's not built yet. This was coordinated with the Planning Division and Urban Renewal Authority using land use and development densities from the Land Use Master Plan and potentials in fire flow that were according to Urban Renewal. The demand projection includes the rigorous conservation efforts that Fountain has pursued in the last several years. And you'll see the plot of annual billed water use in the green bars and the growing number of water users. As we look at this, in the past 12 years, we've increased the total customer count, actually the number of meters in the system, not the number of people, from 7,163 at the end of 2009 to 8,582 at the end of 2020, while we decreased the overall water demand. Now, I want to note that these 3 years, 2010, 11, and 12, were back-to-back-to-back severe droughts. We set a record each year at that time, culminating with 2012, when we sold over 1 billion gallons. And we approached that in the drought year last year. Last year was officially a drought year, 2020. But we did not pass it. We did not sell as much water in 2020 as we did in 2012, even though we had 1,100 more services. That's what conservation, the rigorous application of conservation, gives you. Conservation is the gift that keeps on giving. I'm going to move on to water supply. Fountain's water supply is a portfolio of water rights that includes surface water rights and groundwater rights. Some of the water rights are reusable water, specifically the water imported from the Colorado River Basin on the west side of the state. That water may be used to extinction. Most other water rights are first use only. Once Fountain has used that water right, we cannot reuse the water and must return it to the stream. Fountain's water supply, raw, untreated water, varies as to climatic conditions and varies as to the Interstate Compact Administration for the water imported from the Colorado Basin. Fountain has no control over those variables. So in the water supply section of the master plan, we have analyzed for the average year, the wet year, and the dry year. Likewise, our consultants analyzed the water right yield under 3 imported water conditions. No change to imported water, in other words, business as usual. A moderate reduction in imported water, approximately 70% of our regular imports we still get, and a severe reduction in imported water, receiving less than half the volume of the regularly imported water. And Dan referred to this matrix. If you take nothing away from this section, please remember this matrix. It defines the water rights yield under the 3 climatic conditions, under the dry yield, the average yield, and the wet yield, and it defines the water rights yield under the 3 curtailment conditions. No reduction in Trans Mountain water, a moderate reduction, and a severe reduction in Trans Mountain water. I want to call your attention to the crossroads of the worst case, the dry year happening in a year of severe reduction. We project that our water rights can give us 4,800 acre feet. Our annual demand is 3,167. So, as Dan said, we're in good shape now and for somewhat into the future in any of these conditions. Now, I'm going to really confuse you, because I'm going to throw up there a couple of 17-column spreadsheets, and I have to do that. You know that, Gabe. So this identifies the required additional fully consumable water rights. Somewhere along the line, after we hit that point, we will have to go out and buy water rights. When is that going to be? Well, it is, again, demand. We've analyzed it under all 3 of the reduction scenarios, moderate, severe, and business as usual, and it is demand driven. You can't read it, so I'll look at it for you. This is where we are right now, 3,000 acre feet of demand a year. This is what we project for the full build out, almost 12,000 acre feet per year, 4 times as much. And each one of these different different rows on the column is 500 more acre feet per year demand. What does that mean? At double the existing demand, when we reach 6,000 acre feet of demand, under the no curtailment and moderate curtailment, we don't even have to have more water rights. We have water rights to take us that far. Under the severe curtailment, we have to get 61 more acre feet per year. That's honestly not bad. We are halfway to build out in the water rights that we already own. So we do have to step back a little here. Whenever you do acquire new water rights, it is a multi-year process to actually perfect those rights. You have to take them through water court and get a decree to be able to use those rights. And so even though you say, well, we can double this, but we would have to start acquiring water rights somewhere along in here to be able to do that. However, I think that we're very strong. Our water rights portfolio is very resilient now, and it has a lot of different things. I'm going to move on to the storage side, because water storage mitigates the effects of curtailment and varying yield due to the climatic conditions. And although we have storage rights in Lake Meredith, Keaton Reservoir, and Holbrook Reservoir, our largest water storage is in Pueblo Reservoir. And the Frying Pan, Arkansas project is our import project from the Colorado River Basin. So you sometimes hear the Fryark called out. That's actually water from the Colorado River Basin, but it comes through the Frying Pan, Arkansas, and it's taken through the Boosted Tunnel, which goes through the mountains and pumps it to the eastern part of the state. We have the ability to store 7,761 acre feet of water in just that bucket. So twice our annual storage just in that bucket. The caveat here is that can only be filled by the water that comes from over the other side of the mountain. So right now we have about 6,000 acre feet in there, 2 years of storage just in that account. When we went through the Southern Delivery, we got a long-term excess capacity lease that has the availability right now to store about 1,900 acre feet, and that's roughly full right now. That increases to 2,500 acre feet in 2025, and it's according to a schedule that was adopted in that lease. So this account can store water from some of our water rights, but not all of our water rights. We had to nominate water rights in the SDS Environmental Impact Study so that those that are acquired after 2008 are not welcome in this storage account. This is a 40-year storage contract with the Bureau of Reclamation, which is up for renegotiation in 2047. The excess capacity master contract, which is also with the Bureau of Reclamation, we have 2,500 acre feet available, and that's full right now. We can increase that to 1,000 acre feet in the future. We have to pay for that space. Right now, we don't need to have that space according to the schedule on the previous. If you want to see the spreadsheet again, I can put it up. But we can, when we need it, we can buy that. That's also a 40-year lease, and all of Fountain's water rights, almost all of Fountain's water rights, and leased water is welcome in this account. This account is close to full. So we have right now almost 10,000 acre feet, so 3 times available to store in Pueblo, and we can store almost up to 4 times our demand. Now, that's not the previous one, believe it or not. This is similar to the previous spreadsheet, but this is the required storage that we need. This is the raw water goal. We want 2 years always in storage. That's our goal. When Fountain experiences the build-out demand, we still have the demand, the same one here, in 500 acre foot increments. The required storage is the storage we need to have to move water in and out of those different accounts to maximize our water rights usage. But on the far right, this is what we need for 2 years of storage in Pueblo Reservoir. So sometimes this number is a little bit higher than this number, sometimes it's lower. It depends on how we move the water around. So where will Fountain find this additional storage? Again, under all these things, we can go to 4,500 acre feet per year demand and still have no additional water storage needed. We would have to start picking up more water storage after that point. Where will we find it? In 2008, we purchased the Lafarge, later the Martin Marietta, gravel pit on the southwest side of the city. The pit operator completed all their mineral removal 3 years ago. They created several large holes in the ground, so we don't have to buy property and dig holes. They actually paid us to dig those holes. It was a nice lease. The operator will soon complete their restoration to release the mining permit, which will allow us to plan and build a reservoir in this area. This 600-acre site was always planned for water storage. Let me just do a real quick back and scroll back, and I'll show you where it is. But it's a much earlier slide. This is the 600 acres, and this would be where the Fountain Reservoir is. So, once we get to the point of needing that reservoir, we will build it out. I'm going to move on to treated water. Water delivery is what we call it. This is the nuts and bolts of the water infrastructure. The pipes, plumbing, treated water storage, and treated water elements for delivery to our customers. On an annual basis, the treated water supply can supply the annual demand. Fountain, however, is coming to the ceiling on treated water supply to satisfy the maximum daily demand. And this is a restatement of those same numbers that we had before, that we may be able to treat 1.8 billion gallons if we maximize all of our treatment options, but we cannot deliver that to satisfy our demand as we increase. We're coming to the ceiling of this. Again, with treated water, the water storage can mitigate some of these shortages. However, you can have a whole week of the maximum daily demand together. So if we only have 8 million gallons of treated water storage right now, you have to start every day with full tanks. And if you have 5 days in a row that are stretching you to the max, then you're not going to start every day with 8 million gallons of water storage. So what are we going to do? There are 5 potential sources of treated water that Fountain is considering. We're looking at a separate supply line from Colorado Springs to Fountain to take our full complement of SDS water directly from the Ed Bailey plant or from the Colorado Springs distribution system. Currently, we actually take our SDS water through the Fountain Valley plant. It is called a swap. So that puts us highly dependent upon the continued operation of the Fountain Valley plant. If we bring in a second supply line from Colorado Springs, we introduce redundancy into this, which is very, very positive. Another opportunity for us is a joint use water treatment plant with Security in Whitefield called WARA, the Whitefield Aquifer Recharge Association. We've been working on this for 12 years and working on the permitting and some of the science. We would be storing water below grade in the Whitefield Aquifer after diverting it from Fountain Creek and treating it, and then recovering that water, polishing, treating it, and delivering it to our customers. The nice thing about that is when it's stored in an aquifer below grade, it doesn't have any evaporation. And that's a really big, hot deal in the water circles now. It's called alluvial storage, and everybody wants to do it, and there's funding for it. We're looking at possibly designing and constructing an integrated water surface plant, a surface water integrated treatment plant, owned and operated by Fountain, probably at the reservoir site. Got in contact with our colleagues from Woodmore Water District and from Cherokee Water District when they introduced the loop. They are going for ARPA funding on that. The interesting thing about that is we fit. They are diverting water from the main stem of Fountain Creek down the Chilcot Ditch. We own shares in the Chilcot. I actually sit on the board of directors of the Chilcot. We also carry foreign water through the Chilcot. So it would go to the Callahan Reservoir. The Callahan Reservoir would be expanded, and they would build a treatment plant. Why not sit at the table with them, see where they're going with this? And finally, part of the equipment we received from the Air Force as for the perfluorinated compounds are 2 treatment plants that put out 300 to 500 gallons per minute. And we're using them right now, but when we finish the new plant, those will become surplus. We will no longer use the granular activated carbon. We have title to those 2 plants. We can use them anywhere. We can take them to where our wells are on the east side of Fountain, where it's difficult for us to push water, and we can use our wells and we can treat them there. All 5 of these source water scenarios have positive and negative considerations. The Water Master Plan is not endorsing or ranking these plans, but the Water Master Plan will recommend a study, and that may be one of the first things we bring you, as to which one of these plans is optimal. Keep in mind, over the 30 years or longer that we're talking, it's probable that more than one of these scenarios will be implemented. Now we're moving up the glass, the land use planning congruence with water planning. The water staff and our consultants, working with the planning division to define the water demand data were presented to you earlier tonight. These data were foundational to the conclusions about demand. And as I keep saying, the Water Master Plan is demand-driven, and that's what this was functioned for. Approximately 40% of all water use is exterior, and irrigation of landscaping is the largest contributing factor to that peak day calculation. That's what makes that peak so much more than just the average day. Fountain currently has landscaping requirements for commercial developments embedded in codes and regulation, but none for residential developments. To encourage sustainable, attractive, and functional landscapes that not only support the water needs of new developments, but are affordable and implementable in existing mature neighborhoods, a more structured and codified set of landscape requirements is necessary. Working with the Planning Division and the Conservation and Sustainability Manager, the master plan will recommend development of more comprehensive landscaping codes. Now we're getting to the top of the glass of water, so the top 2 layers are financing and policy. Recommendations will be developed in each of these sections to define the assignment of expenses for the large capital projects, as well as operational changes to optimize the use of our water resources. These may require council actions. Financial topics trigger policy decisions as well. Development-driven infrastructure improvements will be defined to be financed by development fees. Infrastructure to maintain or improve water services to the existing customers will be financed within the water rate structure. One example is about every 10 years you have to replace all the meters. The batteries in the meters only last 10 years. And, believe it or not, and if anybody owns a computer, you know what this means, they don't support the programming 10 years down the line. So there's a recurring cost, but that's borne within the rates and tariffs. Another one is regulatory changes. We were hit with that 5 years ago. With stroke of a pen, our wells became unusable. We're looking at possibly developing irrigation-only water tap fees. And we're looking at guidance, discussion, and development and adoption, possibly, of water budgeting for individual customers. This empowers customers to proactively manage their water use through an opt-in program for the customer to work within a structured water allocation. Policy topics are developed in all of these sections. Some of the ones that we're coming away with now are a proposal for large irrigators to move from irrigating with treated water to irrigating with untreated groundwater. We're looking to work with you and the future councils for guidance, discussion, and formalization of a comprehensive policy for private water systems. We're looking at you for guidance, discussion, and formalization of outdoor watering standards. Currently, we have volunteer water standards. We do not have mandatory. Confirmation from the council to continue to restrict the water sales to customers within the water service area. Currently, that is what we work under. We don't go outside of the city. So my final comments for this presentation are as follows. Water demand, right down here, the foundation. We've analyzed the total build-out for Fountain's water service area. We've defined the total demand for water that the city will need all the way through build-out. This is foundational to structure all the other elements of the master plan. We've developed really good data. It's not calendar dependent. The demand will come when the demand comes. For water supply, Fountain has built a strong and resilient water rights portfolio and a raw water storage plan that will serve us well. We will need additional water rights and additional storage, but not until we have more than doubled our water demand. Water delivery, there's a reason it's in red. It's coming to the end of the cupboard. Investment in additional delivery and redundant delivery systems for water treatment, treated water delivery, and transmission, and treated water storage will be needed in the near term. The land use coordination and congruence with water resource planning is an example of internal management that is working very well. Financing will always be a challenge. Investing in both existing infrastructure and infrastructure to serve new development will be necessary. Working with other departments, and a good example of that is Ordinance 1768 that you passed this evening, that we worked with finance to finance one of our bond issues. And that we need the continued insistence that development is not a burden to our ratepayers, but manages the big financial items and the smaller ones. Policies will be brought to the council by utility staff to support all of these other topics. Proposed policies, revisions to existing policies, and yes, even doing away with some old policies are all part of moving towards the future with management and governance support. Thank you for sitting through this. I hope I didn't bore you to tears. I had to throw up some Excel spreadsheets. You know that. I've got 2 engineering degrees. So they were I'm open for, some of you have already sent, thank you for sending me questions. Thank you for sending me questions. The time for question is not over. When we leave here tonight, the time for questions and comments is not over. Please, ask what I might have confused you with tonight. If it gets too deeply into the weeds, I'll ask for maybe a one-on-one, and we could sit down and go over it.
Okay. All right. Well, at this point, questions for Mike on tonight's part of the presentation. A lot of stuff in there, and just personally, you guys would be amazed how much of this I hear at the dinner table. It's rather sad, but whatever. It's why I stress so much how important this is yeah, we have water, and it sounds like we're really good with the amount of water we had. Really in this summer, early this summer, when, the reports were coming out that Fountain didn't have water for new development, that was totally one of those false statements that Dan was referring to earlier. We have the water, we just don't have the way to get it to those new developments. And so that's kind of the big crux of why we're here today, going through a master plan and trying to figure out where we're going to be setting ourselves up for the future. And so, I know the question came up earlier from Mr. Geek of, we can put this off. I think we can, but the reality is, I think with the current council and the length of time we've been on here, we understand kind of our system and things that have been going on in water for the last, 4, 8, 10 years. That really, I think it use that knowledge that we have now to really set this in place and get it moving forward. So when the next council comes in, they can take the ball and run with it from there and have hopefully a good understanding of where we're at in moving forward as a city. A lot of different ideas out there. We're very fortunate. We're like Colorado Springs, where they've had to impose water restrictions, do those sort of things. And so, again, I think forward thinking by staff, previous and current, and just the things that we've done over the years to really set us up. On the flip side, we've had some catching up to do. I mean, we had a staff and a city that really felt like we would never grow and felt like we were going to be a small town forever. and didn't really go out looking for water when they probably should have been. And so when all the other entities around us and were really pushing and looking for water, we were kind of sitting on the sidelines, playing ignorant, really. And so luckily, you know, again, we started seeing the reality that, you know what, growth's going to occur here too, and whether we like it or not, we need to plan for it. And so SDS, as Dan has said, has been very important. So any questions from council on this portion tonight?
I have a question. I just would like, you know, as more and more families are coming to Fountain and calling it home, I just think that we should be good stewards of our water. Like, you know, simple things like, you know, when we're brushing our teeth, to turn the water off. You know, some things. You know, climate control, climate change is real. You know, we see it on the news all the time about our glaciers and, you know, our polar bears are not having, you know, they're dying. And so we've gotten less and less snow in the last 20 years. You know, we know that. A lot of people are growing vegetables, you know, et cetera, at home now, and I think that we should look at crops that use less water. What I'd like to see is areas where we can reuse and conserve our water. So I don't know if, you know, I would just like to know for myself, you know, where can we as a city reuse and conserve our water?
Well, we do have a manager of sustainability and conservation. Actually, that was one of the recommendations of the very first water conservation plan that we had, was to hire a full-time person assigned specifically to that function. We have focused on the consumer. We are now changing a little bit of that focus to commercial, industrial, and institutional.
Mike,
But-
could you speak up? I don't think people in the
Okay,
audience can
sorry.
hear you.
Yeah, didn't want to yell at people. We've focused on the consumer a lot with our classes, the Slow the Flow program, and a lot of other elements that have paid real dividends in conservation. We're now reaching out to our commercial, industrial, and institutional customers to do the same thing. As far as the city's reuse, we employ a firm that manages our water resources, and they actually were one of the composers of the water supply section in the plan, W.W. Wheeler and Associates. And they manage all of our water resources, and they do some very interesting things with water exchanges and with water swaps to reuse our reusable water. All that water that comes from the Colorado River is reusable to extinction. We use it at least 2.7 more times because of their ability to work exchanges and to work swaps with other water users. So we're looking at that. Another thing that's part of this, it was in the operations section that I didn't touch on, was to work on our side of the meter instead of the consumer side. And there is a guidance document from the American Water Works Association. I've been schooled in it. Several other people here have, that addresses what they call non-revenue water. Water that we receive from, say, Fountain Valley Authority, but we don't sell. It goes somewhere else. It's more than just leak detection. But that's what we're looking at, to do an enhanced amount of what used to be called leak detection, and now it's called non-revenue water management. So, yes, we're looking at all those.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Applegate, go ahead.
Yeah, obviously we have enough raw water. It's the treated water that we don't have. What is our immediate upfront right now pathway to get more treated water with all the developers that would like to come into the area and clamoring for water?
One of those five, to get it grossly, first of all, we have to finish the ion exchange plant. I kind of lowballed in my computations what the production rate was going to be from that. I know what it's designed to do, but It's not there. I can't tell you that it will turn out 1 million gallons a day. So I cranked that back to like 700,000 gallons. So I had hoped to have that water plant working by now, and we would know what that would be. That would, to get that to optimization would be an immediate amount of water that we could use all 4 wells and use them most efficiently. But beyond that, it's one of those 5 other projects that we want to follow up with. Now, the positive thing is that reservoir money is available through the Colorado Water Plan funding, and it's available through the Water Supply Reserve Account that is, both of those are administered through the CWCB. Reservoir funding is very popular, but very underused. We have a reservoir that we own. We don't have to go out and condemn land and build a dam and incur all those permitting costs and years. It should be relatively easy to build that reservoir.
That's way down in the future.
No, that's
I mean, you're not gonna dig that out and have that full of water in the immediate future.
not in the immediate future, but all 5 of those projects will require years of implementation.
But we don't have any access immediately or within the real near future to
No.
get treated water, other than the plant you talk about.
Right.
And that's it. Oh, well, that's too bad. So that probably the closest, easiest thing would be the water you were talking about from Colorado Springs back down.
And that is already, we've opened discussions with them, and, as I said, I presented five projects that have some level of development to them. And, I mean, Vora is probably 5 years at the soonest, maybe 8 years into production. Something to build our own plant, build our own reservoir, will take years to do.
Okay. I kind of feel sorry for developers. 8 years from now, they have no idea what housing prices might be. So
That's true.
things can change in a hurry. So that's too bad. I was just wondering. Thank you.
Ms. Thompson?
Yeah, as a business owner and one of the founding members of the Old Town Steering Committee, I do have some concerns with some of the policy recommendations in here. When are we going to be addressing those in this process?
They will come up, I wanted to, I'm glad you read that. I'm glad you saw them. Not all of them will be adopted. Some of them are elements that we've come away from that other utilities have implemented. Some of them are not. Some of them are unique to that specific project. But if there's some that we want to move forward, or some that we want to take through a due diligence to say, does this really make sense?
Yeah, because I'm very concerned about the one in section 7, page 8, I believe it is. Let me get my glasses on. That a potential policy recommendation is to consider a code requirement that remodel or reuse of existing commercial, industrial, institutional properties be required to upgrade the interior water use facilities to current code compliance, and that exterior landscaping also be required to upgrade to current standards. That could be a huge expense for someone who's trying to get a business started. You have to replace a toilet, obviously you're gonna put the newest one in, but if all of a sudden you come in and say every single toilet has to be replaced, every single sink, every single plant, that could be a huge expense for people when we're trying to get our old town area revitalized. And I think we need to be very, very careful about demanding things like that. Another concern of mine is on the outdoor watering restrictions, same section, page 9. When you're talking about going to odd and even days, which is what Springs is doing, who's gonna monitor that? You gonna have to hire an employee to do that? And then what kind of fines and fees are you looking at giving people? I mean, I have a lot of struggles with that, putting another restriction on our people. That, gardening was a huge hobby for people last year during COVID, and I've seen a lot of people, still continue to be excited about that. And then I didn't notice in here anything to do with working with the HOAs or the maintenance districts and trying to get them to have some new landscaping changes to maybe what they're doing. You see a lot of people trying to change out their yards Maybe the HOAs can get together and have some standards that their people who live in them would have possible xeriscaping plans to choose from, like 6 or 8, per HOA or something. So that, so you don't have it all the same. And I don't see any of that in here either, So there's a lot of other places to do it, but I'm very, very concerned about our existing commercial properties in here and some of these huge expenses. There's a lot of expenses coming down from the state and the federal government to them already. Everybody's struggling already, and I just think could really, really, you could end up with a lot of empty buildings as an unintended consequence of this, of businesses. You're basically taking money out of our pockets. Somebody's going to say, I'm not going to give you $1 million for your building when I have to turn around and put $100,000 worth of improvements in it to bring these standards. You're just taking money out of my pocket as if I ever went to sell my property, right? So to me, that's kind of a private property invasion. We need to really, really think seriously on that, because the person buying the building isn't going to say, oh, I'll give you your $1 million for your building, when I have to do $100,000 worth of improvements on it. I'm making numbers up. Those numbers
I understand.
But I'm very, very concerned when we talk about requirements of things to that standard. A huge piece of property, we're going to require them potentially to change the landscaping. That's an asset when you're trying to purchase the property. Those are things that can be done over time. But we need to be, we have regional building. We need to be on the same page with them. It gets very confusing if you have separate standards. We've worked very hard to have same standards. So I just have some very serious concerns. I think you've done a lot of hard work on this, and I think most of them are in the right direction, but I do have some very serious concerns about some of them in here. And I did talk to Dan a little bit earlier today about some of them and communicate that with him, because this was a lot of information
It was.
to digest.
I agree.
But I appreciate all the work you've done, but I think we need to take time and seriously think about what some of the unintended consequences can be as we move forward with the things that really do need to happen and the decisions that do need to be made fairly quickly.
Well, and I think this is where this is going. None of these decisions are made tonight.
No, there are-
And I think the other part of that is people are going to have to make some sacrifices and do some things as well. Water is not free, as we know, and we can't expect government to do all this for us and expect us just to take advantage of the system. And I think people lately has just been, government needs to do everything, and I don't have to do a darn thing. And if it's going to cost some sacrifices on your end, I think that's something the council and future councils need to look at as we move forward. Because whether it's water, whether it's whatever, everyone wants the government to put up, but at the same time, no one's willing to put up themselves, and it needs to be a working cooperation in order for these things to get done. Again, we're not, this isn't just a Fountain issue. The water issue is occurring across, again, I don't know how many times I could say this, across the Southwest. And when you have states like California, who apparently have the federal government, backing them and pushing a lot of these things forward, and we're stuck here kind of fighting the battle by ourselves. We're gonna have to think outside the box on a lot of things. And so, again, I think the assertion that these decisions have been made, it's not even there. And what I heard clearly from Mike was, these are policies that we need to really vet out and take a look at. Some are gonna make sense and some aren't. And so, right, and, I think the flip side is, you say you can't put these demands on businesses, but let's go ahead and do it on the HOAs where the people live. I mean, there's got to be the balance as well, and who does what and where, and it's a sacrifice I think people are going to have to make regardless of whatever it is. So,
Thank you for that.
Go ahead,
I really,
I don't think I stated that you can't put the demands on the businesses. I said we need to be very careful.
but that's not what I heard.
retrospective
That's
about
not what
we
I
do.
heard. Go ahead.
That's not what you heard?
No, I heard you say that was
That's what I was very clear
exactly.
about saying, that, no, I wasn't attacking anybody at all. I said very clearly that we need to be very careful about not having unintended consequences and ending up with empty buildings.
Right.
Because we need to move forward and be very careful in what we're doing. And that was not what was stated at all.
That's exactly what was stated, and we could listen to it again. It was clearly pro-business, but let's go ahead and do it on the HOAs.
No, I said I
and the
was
homeowners.
concerned that they were not included in this as a possibility of also another way to have conservation of water.
Okay. Mike, go ahead. We've
clearly
interrupted.
stated that he did not include residential, that you know.
Well, we have been working with residential outreach for about 12 years.
Right.
And we were able to work with Cumberland Green Metro District to move them from potable water to untreated groundwater for all of their common space through an augmentation agreement. But honestly, all of these policies were policies that were identified. None of these policies have been implemented. You are the policy governance. We're bringing this to you. All of these have to be discussed, developed, and vetted to where we want to be. And then staff will implement.
And this is over years.
policies. Yeah.
Yeah, this won't be decided on October 26th.
If you took a look at the policy section, there were 91 different policies that were identified. So, yeah, we're not going to do them in the next 3 months. But
Maybe not every year.
well, some will fall by the wayside.
Gordon, you've been pacing back there. Do you need to come up?
If it's time.
Yep, go ahead.
Make it short. Gordon Rick, question for staff. Excuse me, can somebody bring up slide number 12, please? Thank you. Okay, so when I look at this, I see two critical things. First, we had a maximum day demand of over 6 million. From what I understood Mike to say, if our demand is over 6 million, we can't meet that demand. We've got 8 million in storage that can temporarily do it, but we can't sustain over 6 million. Is that correct, Mike?
It would be a real stretch.
Okay, so if something happens to where we've got, a week's worth of $6 million per day, or 6 million gallon per day demand, or our storage drops below, say, 50%, let's say we're down to 4 million gallons, does staff have the authority on their own to go ahead and require mandatory outdoor watering restrictions for a temporary period to give our water system time to recover, to get that 4 million back up to the 8 million? Do we have a mechanism for staff to do that, or do we have to bring council back into session to pass a new ordinance?
It's not currently an ordinance, is it? Who are you pointing at?
Go ahead and step up, Kate. I'm sorry.
We do have a water supply plan in place. I can't recall the year that it was approved. It may have been 2013, but it has different stages in it that are triggered based on how much water that we have on hand, and that gives authority to enact restrictions at that point. And I do want to note that when we talk about potentially incorporating outdoor watering standards, that it's not meant to restrict anyone. It's honestly meant to empower when we get to those very severe stages where we're in significant water scarcity situations. Let me know if that didn't answer your question.
Thank you. As long as staff has got a mechanism.
Yeah, and I would think that's, I think we bring council in because the ones who are gonna take the heat for water restrictions are gonna be council, first and foremost. But generally, because utilities are sitting looking at the water every day, all day long. If they need to make that and enact it, it wouldn't need to be a special council meeting or anything.
I just know typically when you're gonna have a meeting, you've gotta have public notice for so many days.
Right, no, this is not, I don't think, an instance where we would need that. And I think those kickers put us into those spots that, okay, we're reaching these numbers pretty consistently. We need to kind of look at what we need to do next, and those are in place. And so that's why I think we've always been able to stick with just our voluntary restrictions all these years. And luckily for us, we've not had to go past that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
And Katie referred to what we call the drought restrictions, and it's 7 stages. And it involves cut back, eliminating all construction water, cut back to watering our own parks, requesting businesses and other customers to cut back according to 7 different stages. We're changing, one of the policy elements was to revisit that and refer to that as a scarcity control or scarcity management, considering, what? Scarcity response plan that not only considers drought, but it could consider temporary water outages, like a breakdown in the FVA system, that we couldn't bring water up from Pueblo Reservoir, or maybe we get a contaminant in our system that makes us shut down 20% of our supply. That never happens, does it?
Right, and I think some of those things you mentioned, again, is where I go back to, governments looked at to come up with the solutions, but then we would inevitably start getting complaints because the grass is not green at the park, or there's all this dust from construction because we've halted them using dust to keep, or water to keep the dust down. And so again, we get into these things where there's going to have to be some sacrifices from the public. And I would think a lot of times those sacrifices in the long run are going to be beneficial to everybody anyway. I would assume, I don't know, I've never owned a business, that I wouldn't want a lot of landscaping that I have to take care of, because that's expenses that really I don't need unless my business really depends on that frontage to look in a certain way. But I go back to this master plan we're trying to pass forward and get us set up in a good place for the future, because people need to be informed, and we get phone calls like that. Well, the park is yellow. Well, yeah, we're having to cut back. What are you doing? Why is your grass so green? But we don't want to talk about that, And so there's those types of things that I think the public needs to really kind of open their eyes to. And again, water today, it could be something else tomorrow, and those unfortunate things that occur, like water contaminations, we got to take on pretty quickly. So not a fun conversation, but we got to do it. Okay, anybody else? Sorry, Mr. Geek.
I just got one question. As far as the fire hydrants,
Yes, sir.
there is not a problem with them.
We have a regular fire hydrant maintenance program. We tested every fire hydrant last fall, all 1,150 odd?
Yeah, this February, March.
Yeah, February and March in the low flow period, so that it wasn't affecting anybody's pressure or supply. And they're all now color-coded by the fire flow delivery, so.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have another question, Mike.
Marcia Geek. I just want to thank you for what you did. I thought it was a great, put together really well. I have this totally teachery, totally educational comment. I would like to see those tables that you like so well right next to the text that they support, because it was really hard for me to flip back and forth and have the understanding I would have had if I could look at them right together. So for the final draft, it would be really nice to see them together.
Okay, I think that's it. There's no action that needs to be taken on this item tonight. Part 3 is in October. Mr. Blankenship?
Yeah, if I may, Mayor, just real quickly, this is a tremendous amount of effort was put into this plan, not only from the utility staff, but a lot of cooperation from planning, engineering, finance, economic development. It is really a comprehensive and holistic plan, and the cooperation that we've received from other divisions of the Department of the City is very, very much appreciated. But the staff members I would like to recognize this evening. I think that many have said things, but our manager of sustainability and conservation, Katie Helmus, does a fantastic job, has really rocked it recently with some grants, but she's played a really, really vital role in putting this together for us this evening, getting us to this point. Our water resources engineer, Taylor Murphy, Deputy Director Carl Christian, our utilities director emeritus, Curtis Mitchell, is here this evening, and he is also provided a great deal of advice and direction to help us to get here. Hey guys, I'm talking. But most importantly, our project manager, Mike Fink, Water Resources Manager, he has worked just incredibly hard, has put forth an incredible amount of effort to put not only the plan together, but the presentation that he made tonight. Practiced multiple times, and I just want to say to Mike, thank you very much. You've done a fantastic job. We still have some work to do, but you have really set the bar and done a tremendous job here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, and team, for all the hard work, and I know we've got a lot more to go. Okay, let's go ahead and move on super quickly. Correspondence, comments, and ex officio reports. I'll start with Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a few quick things. Trunk or Treat will be October 29th. That's a Friday. And you'll be getting more information, of course, on the way. Just like I like to get the date out there so people can start thinking about it. I normally don't like to steal Chris's thunder, but I will say that I just wanted to thank him and his team today. He hosted part 1 of what is going to be a 2-part active shooter training for our City Hall personnel. And it was really, really informative. His staff that he sent over here to do it, they just did a tremendous job and really helped the folks over here kind of think through some of those challenges that might happen in an unfortunate situation like an active shooter or really any sort of emergency situation that might hit us over here. So I just wanted to thank Chief Heber and his crew for that. And then I wanted to also mention, Councilmember Thompson mentioned the food access meeting last week. I was able to attend the in-person one. That's been hosted by Colorado Trust. And there was a pretty good, small group, but it was a good group, a very engaged group of folks talking about food access issues, particularly in the older part of Fountain, Old Town Fountain. And I think it was a really good conversation, and there's some really, some citizens who are really going to be actively engaged in trying to help us figure out how can we get some more food opportunities down here in this end of town. So I thought it was really worthwhile, and Colorado Trust is going to continue to work on that. So I just wanted to share that with you briefly.
Okay, Mr. Evans? Mr. Johnson? Nothing from me. Chief?
Thunder's out. Thank you, sir.
Wow. Wow, okay. Mr. Trilch?
Nothing more this evening, Mayor.
All right, Mr. Blankenship?
Good, thank you very much.
Ms. Martinez?
Nothing.
Ms. Dale? Okay, I'm gonna move over. Ms. Bailey, anything? You're good? Emeritus Utilities Director, anything? Good seeing you. All right, Ms. Huffman?
Just real quickly, the construction has started on the new skate park in Fountain Mesa Park. Just so you know.
Oh, great, great. Okay, and the pump track I've heard, as Ms. Thompson said earlier, more about that pump track than and there's not one close enough. I think one's in Brighton, and then the other one in Grand Junction. I've heard more about those two than ours because everyone's coming down here, so awesome. Ms. Duncan?
I know everybody's ready to go home, but I just have a few things. Today is National Voter Registration Day. So the great thing about Colorado is that we are a paper ballot society. So please take the opportunity to get registered to vote. If you know anyone that needs to be registered to vote, they can go online and do so. Also, I want to thank the Chief Heber, for the recognition of our staff that we had a couple of weeks ago. That was awesome, creating a sense of belonging, you know, just hearing the trauma that they go through and what they have to deal with, and the family connection that we saw in the room. It was awesome, so I appreciate you taking care of our officers.
All right, Mr. Geek?
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Applegate?
Nothing tonight.
Ms. Estes?
Just want to give a shout out to Finance for their award for doing a fantastic job on our budget and our audit. So great job, guys. I'm proud of all of that department.
Ms. Thompson? Thanks for taking that away from me. I was going to mention that. It is the, what do they call it? Scott, what is a GFOA?
Government Finance Officers Association.
It's a Distinguished Budget Award, and it's the 12th time we've received it in the past 14 years. And so I just want to make mention of the hard work that our finance department does in just ensuring our budgets triple checked, a million times checked, everything's great. And the staff are, you know, really watching where our money is going, how we're dealing with it, what we're doing. Being able to do all the things that we do on a limited budget, but act at the same time ensuring that we're providing as much as we can for citizens. So, thank you and great job to the finance department for doing that. In case you weren't paying attention, during consent agenda tonight, we did approve movement of dates for meetings in November because of Christmas and Thanksgiving. So November 9th and 16th are our regular council dates, and December 14th and 21st are the next council dates as well. So we basically moved the second meeting in each month up a week. The second meeting moved up a week, and then, yeah, just moved it up to the third week. November 9th and 16th, December 14th and 21. And I think that is it. We don't have executive session tonight. Our next regular meeting is October 12th. Thank you.